Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Edwards and I'm with Rainscapes Irrigation. I really appreciate you allowing me to join you today. Uh, Today I'm going to be talking about some good tips for maintaining your lawn and also some services that we can help you, and happy to answer any questions you may have throughout the presentation. So I'm going to start with just a little background about who I am. I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. I graduated from University of Tennessee in 2012. Have a degree in economics and business administration. So, been working for Rainscapes since a little bit before I graduated, and loved the era, so I stuck around, and I've continued to stay with Rainscapes ever since then. And I manage the lawn care department here, so we provide fertilization and weed control, and we service basically Knoxville, Maryville, and greater Knoxville area. So our company, a little bit about us. We are located in Maryville, Tennessee, and we service, like I said, from about Athens to Morristown, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, good portion of East Tennessee area. And we are actually in our 25th year of service, so we're really happy to celebrate that. We have a lot of great customers to thank for that, a lot of great employees that we couldn't do it without. And so I do have a list of services that we provide. We are an irrigation company. That's how we started out, but we also provide lawn care service, landscape lighting. We also can provide a lot of drainage solutions if water is an issue in your yard or if you have any issues with erosion. So, so our irrigation department, we install irrigation systems all day, every day. And we also have about 15 service technicians that perform maintenance checks on the systems all throughout the year. So we have seasonal packages that will cover everything from starting your irrigation system in the spring through winterizing it in the wintertime so you don't experience any freeze damage. But we also do maintenance visits throughout the year, and we also provide the annual backflow inspections that are required from the state of Tennessee just to keep the water supply safe. Our lawn care department, we offer fertilization and weed control for all grass types, aeration and overseeding. We typically do in the fall. We also offer some common control for some common insects that might be present in your yard, such as flea and ticks, or we also do mosquito control throughout the warm season. And we also have one other unique service, that's turf painting, which a lot of people are really interested in this. It's a pretty cool concept. We typically will paint grasses that go dormant in the wintertime just to keep some nice color throughout the off season. But we can also use it to just spruce up some areas in the summertime that just they haven't done well, or they're really dry and drought stressed. These pictures that I've included here are actually for a wedding venue, and they just wanted to add some color, just to improve the presentation of the lawn for the pictures and the ceremony. But it's also a great tool if you have your house on the market. Maybe you haven't kept up with the maintenance the past few years and your yard just doesn't look that great. We can come in and paint the turf, and you can see a pretty good instant transformation, and it really adds a lot of curb appeal. So I just included a few pictures, before and afters, just because everyone seems to be really curious about this service. And Allison, thank you for joining us. We do service Rarity Bay area, both with our irrigation department and our lawn care service. So if you'd like to reach out, you can do so through the comments, or you can also reach us at 981-4270, or our website is rainscapes.com. And I'll also send you a message, Miss Howard. So I also mentioned we do landscape lighting, which lighting is one of my favorite things that we offer just because it makes such a huge difference. And a lot of people invest quite a bit of money in their landscaping and their house, and the use of outdoor lighting can really accentuate architectural features such as columns or the corners of your homes. Also, as you can see in these pictures, it really brightens up the trees when they're lit up from underneath. And you know, a big thing is it adds a lot of security to the house without making your house look like a stadium with a bunch of floodlights in the area. So here's another example. This one's focused more on the front of the house, but you can really tell the difference between the house on the right and then the darker house on the left. And just one other thing we do, drainage. You know, a lot of times there's water that can collect around the house or throughout the yard, and water is one of the most powerful forces of nature, so it can destroy just about anything. So we can help you divert that water out from the house, from the gutters. We can also help divert water that runs off driveways or collects in low-lying areas of the yard. So, so that's just a brief overview. Just some keys to a good-looking lawn. Um, and it's not really one magic answer that's gonna change your lawn for you. So it's kind of a collection of a few different factors. Um, so water, temperature, soil, and mowing. So for the most part, we can definitely control the soil through fertilization throughout the year, and we're just providing the proper nutrients according to the plant's needs throughout the year. And then mowing, you know, mowing's another thing that we're in complete control of. Now the water, we can definitely help you out with that as far as irrigation systems go. The temperature, you know, we can't control that. So I kind of want to help you out with the things that you can control, like the fertilization, the soil, and the mowing. And I'd be happy to have some tips for some irrigation schedules and just general practices that are going to help you out along the way. That'll make things a lot easier for you. So the first thing I want to kind of talk about is mowing, because that seems to be what most homeowners do themselves, and it's an easy way. You can make small changes just in your mowing practices that'll really benefit the health of your lawn. Um, so one thing, uh, sharpen your blades pretty often. Usually recommend several times a year. Um, it really makes a big difference as far as how clean the cut of the blade is. If you notice in this picture, the grass on the right is much more dull. The grass on the left has much better color. And the reason for that is a dull blade tends to rip and shred the ends of the blade, which give it that torn appearance that you see on the right. The left, it's going to make it more of a clean cut. And see, the dull blades carrying the leaf blade like this is going to make it a lot easier for disease to move into the plant and attack it, and the leaf blade is going to be in a constant state of trying to repair itself rather than actually thrive and just grow to the best of its ability. And as you notice, if you were to see this lawn from a distance, it would just have a really dull, kind of a pale khaki look to the overall over the course of the whole yard. But this is what each individual blade looks at like, and that's what's going to give it that appearance. My biggest tip, this is what I tell everybody: just raise your blades, mow your lawn high. Um, a lot of people in the spring, when they start mowing for the year, they like to mow real low, inch or two, and sometimes you can get away with it, and the grass will look okay. But over the course of time, you'll really stress your yard out. And just to clarify, For the most part, I'm going to be talking about caring for tall fescue because that's what we have the most of here in East Tennessee. So if you happen to have a Bermuda yard or a zoysia yard, something that's more of a warm season grass, your mowing practices will be a little bit different. You can mow that a lot lower, but like I said, for the most part, I'm going to be referring most of my tips to tall fescue. So we normally want to keep the grass about 3 to 4 inches tall. Um, this is going to prevent some heat stress. The taller grass provides a little extra shade to the soil surface. So that's going to keep the surface from drying out nearly as fast as it would typically on the hot days once we move into June, and especially July and August. But there are several benefits from it. Um, you know, it's going to help with your weed control. The grass will be thicker, and like I said, it shades the surface, so you'll have less chance of germination from other seeds that you don't want. So this graph just represents the effect of mowing height on the presence of crabgrass, which can be a huge problem in this area. So there's no herbicide on the grass. They're just measuring the effects based on mowing height. And as you can see, on the left 2 columns, that's mowing at 1 and 2 inches respectively. And so there's about between 75 and 80% crabgrass coverage based on that mowing height alone. So, and then once you get up to 3 inches, when you raise your blade up, it drastically reduces the amount of crabgrass in the lawn. And then once you go all the way up to 4 inches, you actually have complete control of crabgrass without using any herbicide. So you've eliminated the crabgrass in your yard solely by raising the blade on your mower. And another big thing, the higher you mow, the deeper your roots are going to grow. So basically the root system of the plant is going to grow to accommodate whatever plant material it's supporting. So the taller your grass, the deeper your roots are going to grow. So this is really going to help you out once we get into the drier months. If the root system is nice and deep once we get to the summer, then the drier days aren't going to hurt them as much. But if you constantly mow low in the spring, your grass may do okay for the most part, and then the first few days that it is hot, your grass can turn brown in the matter of a week. And the reason for that is your roots are closer to the short end, so a lot of the roots are in the top 1 to 2 inches of the soil. So first thing that dries out when it gets hot is the top of the soil surface. So your root zone is basically completely fried at that point and can't support itself. So another thing is the frequency of mowing, which I hear a lot of people mention that they mow once a week or once every other week on a Saturday or Sunday, and unfortunately the grass just doesn't follow our schedule. So you really want to mow your grass as often as it's growing or as it needs to be mowed. As a general rule, we don't want to mow more than a third of the grass at one time. So if your grass is 6 inches, you don't want to go any lower than 4. And it happens to me all the time where I miss a weekend, or it rains the day that I want to do it and the grass gets out of hand, which is not necessarily going to ruin it. But the thing that you have to remember is you can't mow it at the same height that you always do. You have to raise the blade, raise it as high as you can, and then if you have to, you may have to come back a few days later with the blade, 1 notch lower so you can get it back down to your normal height. But when you mow more than a third of the grass at one time, it's going to cause it to try to go into a state of recovery. So if you mow it low, every time you mow, it's going to be constantly stressed out and recovering. And the root system, it's going to put all of its energy into recovering rather than developing a nice healthy root system, which is going to benefit the plant for the long run. And this is another thing for those of you out there that have irrigation systems. I know everybody doesn't, but they're a great tool to have, a great supplemental water to keep everything alive when we do have issues with drought. So the thing I would recommend to you is to water deep and infrequently. You don't want to water every day. That's not going to help the plant, or any plants for that matter. But typically you want to put down 1 to 1.5 inches of water. You'll want to split that up between 2 to 3 watering events. And so the reason for the deep watering is when you get the water in the ground, over as it dries out, the water is going to percolate and soak deeper into the soil. And as the surface dries out, the roots will continue to follow the water deeper and deeper into the ground. So watering frequently will encourage the root system to develop much better for you, and it'll be able to withstand drought a lot better because the root system is a lot deeper. But if you water every day or a couple times a day, then the root system is always going to stay right at the surface because that's where water is always available. So it doesn't even have, the roots don't have to work to get water. And so if you water like that for a long period of time, and then we get into summertime and we get a few days in the 90s or 100 degrees, the top inch of soil is where all your root system is, and that's going to be the first thing that dries out. So those yards will normally get hit pretty hard by drought stress pretty quickly. So these are just some yards that they do have irrigation systems, and if you happen to notice anything like this in your yard, this is kind of this type of thing that we fix on a daily basis. This is just poor coverage or not enough areas and not enough water in certain areas. So if you ever see abnormal patterns like that, definitely give us a call. We can definitely make this system much more efficient for you and get better coverage. Here's another one. This is a good one. If you ever see perfect circles in your yard, that usually means there's some sort of issue. Nature typically doesn't do things like this on its own. So, and then here's another example, just bad coverage. A few extra sprinkler heads could resolve the issue. We can definitely take care of this for you. So these are some things that you will probably see come up as we move into the summer months. Both drought and disease are most prevalent. Obviously, once we hit June, July, and August. So I just wanted to give you some examples of both of these, so that it might help you distinguish whether you have a water issue or whether you have some sort of disease problem. So there's a few obvious signs of drought stress. The brown patches in your yard are going to appear pretty random, and they're typically going to be pretty widespread. They're not going to be isolated too much. Also, if you do happen to have an irrigation system, if you notice parts of your yard that are very green and then other parts of the yard that are brown, then the area that's green is likely to get much more water and everything else isn't getting enough. And this is another issue where a simple irrigation repair could solve this problem. And if the lawn is greener in low areas where it holds water, that's another good sign. And this is a good one. If you ever see this can actually happen during a heavy drought or a hard frost. But it's a good indication of your grass being too dry. Yeah, if you can see footprints through the grass after you've been walking on it that is too dry, and what's happening, the grass blade doesn't have enough moisture in it, so it just loses flexibility. And so if you were to walk on grass like this, it would probably sound a little crispy too. So that's a good indication. But not only walking on it, but if you have machines on it, this is drought stress, believe it or not. The grass just couldn't handle the stress. Any kind of tracks, any kind of machine leaving tracks in the yard in the summer is a good sign that could use a little bit more water. And then if you just a good way to check on drought stress versus disease is if you just go out and pull on the grass itself, and if it doesn't come out of the ground very easily, then it should be good to go. That typically means that the grass has just gone dormant. It's severely drought stressed, and rather than putting any energy into growing, it's just storing everything until it's able to grow again. So one of the big issues that we have with tall fescue here in East Tennessee is brown patch fungus. If you have tall fescue, or any of your neighbors have tall fescue, I can pretty much guarantee you've seen it at one point or another. And brown patch is caused by fungal spores, which they just spread, multiply, and they will feed on the turf. So and the brown patch, it's going to show up once we start getting hot and humid conditions. That's why I normally say late May, early June. Normally when the daytime highs are in the 90s and we're having lows in the 70s at night, that's usually when we start to see it show up. But one of the best indicators is the circular patches of brown grass. It's like I said, perfect circles. This isn't so. If you see this, this is definitely a fungus, and you can put fungicide on there. There are several different options. Typically, you're going to need to repeat the application every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the product that you use and the amount that you are to use. Um, so this is another really good indicator. If you look at the leaf blades around those brown spots, you'll actually see lesions on the grass blade. So this is a really good early indicator if you ever see this. Like I said, put some fungicide on there. One thing I would not recommend is do not water. Typically, when people see these brown spots, they assume that it's some sort of drought stress. Um, so that um, so watering at night is going to really hurt this because you don't want the grass to remain wet throughout the night. That's going to just help the fungal spores spread just like a damp crawl space. So that's about all I have. We just have a couple minutes left. I don't see many questions, so I'll show you one more thing. A lot of the biggest insect issue that we're going to have in this area is grubs, and it's not necessary. The grubs will feed on the roots of your grass, but a lot of times it's the animals that they attract that do the majority of the damage. So uh, a lot of times you'll have crows, skunks, other animals digging moles, and if you want to see if you have grubs, just yank on your grass, and if it pulls up like sod like this, if it pulls up like carpet, you'll typically see some grubs underneath, and you can alleviate that with a grub application. Um, and Miss Law, I did see your message. I will get right back to you about Spring City. And I appreciate everyone's time today. If you ever have any questions or any help with your irrigation, drainage, or lawn care services, just please give us a call. You can reach us. You can reach us at 865-981-4270 or rainscapes.com. Hope everyone has a good afternoon and enjoy the spring. Go Vols!